Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You're back at the parking lot. The Stoke is high. You're talking bikes, progression, tech, nutrition. That's what we do here every week on the Ride and Laugh podcast. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Danny, I am doing so good. Another excellent week of riding. I can't wait to get into it. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing awesome. We've had some outstanding weather here in the Northeast, and we are grabbing it. And, you know, it's mountain bike therapy, getting out there for rides, work-life balance, and enjoying ourselves and getting some progression in. So it's been really, really fun. Yeah, a lot of time to hang out, mountain bike buddies, and more riding means more time in the car and more joking around and more breakfast and lunches. And it's just really fun. We're having a good time.
I can't think of a time in my mountain bike career where I have had more progression in a shorter period of time. Can you remember, like, it's crazy, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the bulk of our progression has been the past 2 or 3 years.
Right? It's crazy.
To say, there's been times when we've had like crazy tech progression, when we did things that we never thought we were going to do.
Well, that's
at
true.
Mount Penn. Really steep slabs and really crazy looking skinny. Some of these features aren't there anymore, but you know, we started attacking that stuff and having more confidence with it. And it was like every ride was a full adrenaline ride. Some of that stuff is just so cool. And then you compare that kind of experience with, obviously there's progression on trips and that sort of thing, but I feel like the e-bikes for you really unlocked jumping and brought that to more confidence. So is that what you're referring to, is the jumping?
Well, just everything in general. If you think about like fitness progression, which is like when we first started riding, it was very like cross-country focused. And so the progression was slow burn. You know, it was like getting fitter and fitter and fitter and fitter, faster and faster, faster. With this kind of progression, right? Big slabs, big drops, big jumps. It's almost immediate in the sense that once you clear one drop, then that leads you to the next one. Once you clear one slab, then it leads you to and that kind of riding is very new to us. And that progression is just been, I just been thinking about it, just looking at all the things that we've been doing. It's just been like, I can't stop smiling.
I know. It's so cool. It is. Do you ever feel like you get like adrenally fatigued? Like, I just want to go out and just pedal like some cross country and just have fun with my bike without worrying about hitting the dirt.
Yeah. And then the minute that you do that ride, you're like, yeah, I wish I was doing drops.
It's kind of boring. I gotta say, it's kind of boring. Is this all there is? Just all this pedaling and lots of gnats and I feel like those rides oftentimes, if you feel that way, you should go for that. Like if you're feeling adrenally fatigued and you've just been pushing too much, then take a day off or go for a ride where you just feel really comfortable and hit things that you're comfortable with and get your mojo high and keep it high. But yeah, man, it can wear you out a little bit. I wonder, like a trip, our friends that live in the Pacific Northwest, especially, like you're just, are you riding this stuff all the time? And then our friends that have visited the Pacific Northwest or other places, and we got some listener recommendations for destinations, and we will be doing a bucket list episode. It's not going to be this episode because we have such good feedback on our listener comments. We asked and we got awesome feedback, and we want to talk about that, and we want to get everyone else's opinion and share what we think is some really cool opinions. And but so I do wonder, like, if you go out on one of these trips where do you get worn out adrenally, do you, and by that I mean like the excitement level is so high each time, each trip, each ride, that you get exhausted from it. Listeners, do you know what I'm talking about? That adrenal fatigue where you've kind of pushed yourself and you've, and even succeeding. But you're just like your body has so much stress hormone in it because you're overcoming these fears to go and do something, and you succeed at it. But then afterwards, like, I've laid down in the dirt before. I'm just like, oh my God, we've gone 3 miles and we've done like 14 features, and I'm out. I'm like ready. I'm ready for lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And it's so
man.
much fun. And you look at the video, you take pictures, take video, because that's awesome to have, right? And you look at it all week, and you're like, oh, I want to do that again, or I think I could do that a little bit better, or I want to try to get this feature, and it just keeps going. It's a great sport.
And it's all relative, Danny. That's what's the best part of it. You know, like we're all at different levels, but everyone can kind of relate to that feeling of accomplishing something for the first time. And it doesn't have to be, you know, a 30-foot gap jump over a canyon. Maybe your first like
God.
1 foot. Yeah, seriously. Maybe your big feat was getting over a 1 foot drop, you know, and that was huge. And that's adrenally fatiguing as well, because you've been worried about it and thinking about it, you know, and we've all started somewhere, you know, and that's, I love that, man. I love it.
And for our cross country listeners, and because you guys are absolutely mountain bikers, and you have rides where, you know, you're going to hit a downhill and you're going to set a new PR, and you have rides where you're going to hammer an uphill and set a new PR.
Yes.
And that's awesome also, but also exhausting, right? Yeah. You can't go out if you're riding at XC, you can't go out for PRs every time. Like sometimes you just got to go out and just smell the flowers, so to speak. You know what I mean? Just get the wheels rolling and have fun. So whether it's learning how to jump or how to do drops or slabs, and Sage and I like doing all of that stuff. We also like setting. I mean, there's nothing more exciting than getting back and looking at Strava and being like, oh, I got a PR or a top 10 on this climb, or you know, or on a downhill. So that's really fun too. And you make an excellent point, Sage, that progression is anywhere. And so we have listeners that are beginners that are just like, you know, hey, I'm happy to, you know, get a small little rock roll and feel good and be centered on the bike.
Heck yeah.
And then you know, from the feedback, we have listeners that are also really high level riders that are talking about doing things that you and I haven't imagined yet. But we're unlimited, listener. You're unlimited. Sage, you're unlimited. I'm unlimited. Anything is possible. We're not bringing the toot back. One episode. Listener, is the toot cool enough to stick around? Toot.
I got a couple toot messages.
I need feedback on this. I need feedback. I need some other opinions. It did get cooler as the episode went along, but
it's got to come from down here, bro. It's got to come down from
Ride
down
and Laugh One at Gmail. YouTube comments, let us know, does the toot have legs? That doesn't make any sense. Does the toot have
smell?
some sort of train with legs? All right, well, should we segue into some listener comments, or did you want to talk more about adrenal fatigue?
Oof, the adrenal fatigue is giving me fatigue.
I'm fatigued from the adrenal fatigue. The listeners are like, yeah, we're all fatigued of this bit. Please move on to the next bit. No one's going to be tired. We're only 8 minutes into this thing. You guys are really trying our patience. I was talking about how everyone was unlimited, and then you tooted, and you derailed me. I'm
sorry.
Everyone, I was raising the collective vibe of the mountain bike community, and you tooted on me. You tooted all over it. This is what everyone's coming for, you know? You don't toot on a man's vibe. Sheesh. All right, listener, Ride and Laugh One at Gmail or the YouTube comments. Is the toot cool, or is he tooting on my vibe? Well, I'll think of a better way to ask it. Maybe by the end of the pod, I'll have a better way to ask it. But you know what I mean. All right. You're unlimited. You're unlimited. Unlimited toots. Here we go. Listener comments, listener feedback. And we're going to be reviewing podcast number 27. I want to do that. Jumping mountain bikes is fun, and adding style on jump trails is next level. And that was the podcast where Sage and I met a bunch of our local shredders on Mount Penn, and we saw them on the pro level jump line there, and they were boosting, and Skyline, and they were boosting, and they were throwing in whips and style, and it just looked awesome. And so our question was, does that style add to the actual safety of the jump? Does the style actually add to the stability of the jump? Is there more to it than just showboating, as we said? If you haven't listened to the episode, go back and listen. It's a good one. So lots and lots of really good feedback. So on jumping and showboating, I have Josh at Slanted Ground, who one of a great commenter, also great channel, great apparel, and great Instagram and YouTube. And he says, doing tricks, whips, tabletops, showboating, hot dogging, etc. off a jump is actually a way to control your arc. Physically doing something in the air in your arc is a way to control your mass when it's airborne. Some people call it creating shapes. You'll notice the most benefit of this on a windy day when you've gained confidence, control of jumps. Straight airs are actually more difficult than doing something fancy.
Wow.
And
yeah,
there's a lot there.
There's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, man.
Yeah. The next one is very similar. The next one is Steve at Ben Spokes, our buddy Steve, who's an awesome jumper. And Steve wrote, Danny was getting it right. We purposely lean or turn the bike in the air to have control over the entire time, and we bring it back straight by the time we land. If you just hold on and stay straight, you're not really in control and most likely dead sailor. It's nothing to do with occupying our mind. We actually love it up there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because you had a theory that it was occupying the mind while you were in the air so that you don't panic. And he's saying it's not occupying the mind. It's like Josh at Slanted Ground was saying, it's moving the bike in the air. And then if you're moving the bike in the air, then you can, I think, start to match the landing and do other things. And I will say, as someone who jumps and is learning to jump and is now clearing some of these bigger jumps, I'm a straight liner. Right now, I'm a straight liner. I'm trying to ride left t-shirt. I'm a straight liner.
Straight liner.
Don't be a straight liner. Don't be a straight liner. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I absolutely do that. And, you know, they're both saying that you have less control when you're just doing that. I mean, a windy day, it makes a lot of sense that if you're just like hanging out there in the air. We talked about, Zan, Sploosh MTB and I have talked about being Lankies. We're susceptible to wind. We're very tall. Big bike, big lanky body, you know?
Yeah. The part that sticks out to me was something that Steve said, which is he said, love being in the air, you know, and I still haven't hit that point yet where you're in the air and you're like, I love this feeling. It's still for me so new that it's still that scary, nervous excitement.
Yes.
And
such a good point.
And for me, trying to work that move in kind of gives me something to do so that my brain isn't just kind of floating around like, what am I doing up here? You know, it's like, oh, now I have something to do, which is something that they're all saying, that this is occupying space and time, but also they're using it as a stability, which I haven't gotten to that point yet where it's like, oh yeah, I'm actually doing this to be stable in the air. It's more just brain space, you know? So gosh, that would be so cool to get to that point. And I'm really grateful for our listeners for telling us that, because that's news to me and I can't wait.
Yeah, I actually thought it was a really interesting point. And there's another interesting comment coming up that with it's not something that's talked about in all that jump how-to videos and whatnot. No one really talks about creating shapes in the air or doing something in the air to, you know, add to your stability. And maybe they do. Maybe I just missed it as far as like matching the bike to the landing. But I think it's really good feedback. And so it's something that I'm going to be working on more. It's just, like you said, being up in the air. I mean, listeners, let us know if you feel this way also when you're learning to jump, RideandLaugh1@gmail.com or the YouTube comments. But I feel like a lot of times when I hit a jump, I'm trying to clear the jump by going as low as possible. It's scary up there.
Yeah, it is. It's really scary, you know, and you watch people like Brian, you know, and Ben Spokes, you know, and Logan and all those guys, and you don't see that fear. They're so comfortable, you know, and that's where we need to get. You know, we're like that on Slow Speed Tech. You know, we're just so comfortable. and I guess that comes from repetition, right? So we just got to get out there and keep doing it. Yep.
I think so.
Love it.
We had the e-bike day where we went 3 days in a row.
Repetition.
And each day got better. And it was, because the e-bike, we were able to just repeat those same jumps over and over and over. And I know Brian, at B&E MTB, Brian, he was BMXing. And so as a kid. And so, it's really putting in the time and the commitment to getting airborne and unlocking it. But it's also creating the belief system. It's also creating the belief. This is another thing that we have been working on. We talk a lot, especially in the beginning of the first bunch of episodes of the podcast. We talked a lot about visualization. And I'm going to talk more about this later again. But it's creating that belief system that, I am good at jumping my mountain bike. Like, I'm good at this. And starting to believe it and then allowing that to unlock. So not that believing it is going to magically make it happen, but believing it is making it possible, and then adding momentum for things to kind of line up so that you can practice it, like the e-bike day, or like the bike coach being at Skyline the same day that you needed, Chris, who was, a junior bike coach, but knew how to jump and was giving you tips. Like, those things all lined up for you perfectly because you've been putting it out there. And in my opinion, I think we can do that.
Yeah, I think a really easy way to kind of visualize what you are saying is, if you're sitting at the beginning of a jump, are you sitting there saying, I can't jump. I'm not a good jumper. I can't jump. Are you going to clear that jump? You're most likely not. But I got to tell you, if you go and you stand at the front of that jump, or you're standing right before the jump and you say, you know what, I can get this jump, you're going to have a much better shot at clearing that jump. And that's what we're saying. You still have to put in the work. You have to still do it. You have to do all that. But it's how you approach it. If you're approaching it from a negative space, right? This isn't like hippie talk, right? To reference one of our comments we got back there. This isn't hippie talk. It's just changing how you are approaching this big feature. Maybe it's not a jump. Maybe it's a drop or a slab. If you're going like, oh, well, I'm just not a good mountain biker, I can never do this. You're right. You won't do it. You're right. You're absolutely, just don't even bother. Don't even bother. But I tell you what, if you've been working at it and you say, you know what, I am good at slabs. I am a good mountain biker. I can jump. I tell you what, you got a much better shot at it. You got a much better shot at it.
I mean, the language that we use, the language that the identity that we give ourselves is so powerful. I used to say, oh, I'm no good at skinnies. I don't want to do skinnies. And I just stopped saying
it. You did.
Am I fantastic at skinnies? I'm getting better. But I'm not going to put it out there like, no, I'm not good at skinnies. No, I'm a guy who's getting better at skinnies. I'm a guy who's pretty good at skinnies. I like riding skinnies.
Yeah, you are.
And it's gotten better. And you can use this in life. You're going for a job interview, right? You go in, you're like, oh, I'm not going to get this job. They're not going to like me. There's people that are more qualified. That's a terrible way to go into anything. Yeah. But if you go in, right, and you sit down and then you're like, yeah, I'm super qualified for this. I can do a great job here. You're like, you don't really know that yet, but if you feel it and you're going to figure it out, then you're going to give that impression that you're the person for the job. So just bringing this positive energy, like, yes. Look, anything is possible and I'm unlimited, then anything is possible, And I think it's hard for us. It's hard for me sometimes to think unlimited is unlimited. There's not a cap on what we can do. So let's make it happen. And Sage and I are out here. We're clearing jumps. It's not perfect, but it's really fun. It's really fun. It's part of the journey. It's not.
Yes, it's
not magic. There's magic in there. You still have to put the work in, and you still have to, and figure out the form and ask questions and learn. But there's a lot to the believing that you can do it, and then living from that place.
I love it, buddy. What's the best that can happen?
Yeah. Anything else on the jump comments that you wanted to touch on?
No, man, this is all new ground to me, and I really do appreciate all the feedback from the listeners, because it's stuff that we're learning. We're learning with everybody else.
Yes.
Yes.
Another thing that we had talked about on that podcast, which people wrote in on, which was really, really interesting, was the braking bumps.
Oh,
and
yeah. Ugh.
your theory was that what was your theory on the braking bumps?
I had said that I thought it was people actually braking in the turns, and more specifically speaking to like beginners. And we saw this at Blue when we're riding the lift up. You know, there's a couple lines that you can see where there are some deep berms, and you can see people braking and hear their brakes kind of squeal to a stop in the middle of a berm because they were going too fast. But we got some feedback that that's not actually the case.
Yes, we did get feedback that that's not the case. I mean, the name of them is braking bumps, so that certainly leads you to believe that they're caused by people braking. So, you know, that I think that was a very good assumption, and that's what I always assumed, was that they were caused by people skidding through berms, and which we didn't really understand why. And you were saying, well, beginners might do it because they're scared, and so they're not modulating. Then, if you haven't learned how to modulate your speed yet, but we got an email from Matthew Fitzgerald on braking bumps, and thank you very much, Matt. And it says, as someone who has raced a couple of downhill World Cups, referring to braking bumps, they're not caused by skidding. It's just dirt giving way. Then as one spot gets soft, it cascades. Tracks I've ridden that are only open to pros still develop braking bumps. Beginner trails just have more riders braking over longer distances, or riding over longer distances, so more of that erosion essentially. And when we were at Mountain Creek, we were really paying attention to which trails had the most braking bumps. Now they were out there sometimes repairing some trails. So, you know, some trails might have had repairs and you didn't know, but it certainly did seem like the more heavily used trails did have the most braking bumps, to Matt's point. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, how much of my foot can I stick in my mouth? I mean, it makes total sense. Like, I still think that maybe the braking in the turns probably doesn't help, you know, because you are literally ripping dirt off of the berm. So that certainly can't be good. And that's probably adding to the things that he's saying. But what he's saying makes a lot of sense. You know, the trails that get ridden the most do have the most braking bumps. So I think he makes a really good point. And, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why I like Blue so much and why a lot of people hate Blue. You don't find any braking bumps at Blue. And the reason why is that terrain is so shaly, you know, so no matter how many uses, it just gets shalier and shalier. Whereas somewhere like Mountain Creek, where they're using like packed clay, you really see that, where the wear and tear just starts to, you know, loosen up the dirt. It starts to fall down and you get these holes. Yeah, I think it's a combination of a little bit of what I'm saying and a lot of what he's saying.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you just think about a well-built berm made out of dirt, it's standing upright pretty good. I mean, gravity is definitely trying to pull that dirt down. And the higher you get on the berm, like the more chances. So, and then if you're hitting it with tires all the time and loosening it up all the time, then it's gonna deteriorate. And some of these bike parks, you know, where you see these braking bumps, first of all, they're on really popular trails because the worst braking bumps are on the most popular trails. So they don't want to shut them down to work on them. And these bike parks are really big. Some of these runs are really long. And so, you know, it's just constant work. And so that's why maybe you don't see all these braking bumps repaired mid-season.
Yeah. We had witnessed that at which we're going to talk about, our ride at Mountain Creek, which is a local bike park for us. Well, it's not that local for us, but it's one of our favorite bike parks. But on the lift ride up, we definitely saw a team of people fixing one of the trails, and it was like 8 people. And you see all the tools they have to get up there with all these. You're not finding dirt, you know, and digging a hole next to the trail. Like, they're trucking up good clay and dirt to pack. So it's not as easy as just go up there and fix it. It's not one person, you know, like, hey, Tom, can you grab a shovel and go fix, you know, so-and-so trail? No, it's a team of people. So kudos to all those people. Yeah. Shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gratitude to everyone at the bike parks or anywhere where you're fixing berms. And you see the guys that are building jumps in local spots. And you know, there's always dig to ride. You know, like if you want to ride this, we need your help digging, you know, so which thank you for anyone who's ever done the digging, because I haven't, but we appreciate you.
Yeah.
we were talking about the Scandinavian flick a little bit again, which is a move where you're purposely skidding into and out of a turn. And our buddy Logan, who was is a trail builder, and had told us that he didn't mind the Scandinavian flick or the Scandi on the trails. And we were kind of curious about that because it seemed like it would also damage the trails. And so he elaborated, and he sent a video. If I could find it, I will send it to you. But this is a pretty good example of what he's talking about with the turns. And the rider, he said, was using no brake in all body English and speed. And this dude's like, and there's dirt flying up. He's turning so violently with his body that there's dirt flying up from his wheels. So Logan added, I am more referring to drifting through a turn because your speed is making you break traction, not the brake.
Yeah.
An unbelievable move.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Have you done that?
Drift. No, the only way that I drift is grabbing brake, but I know exactly what he's talking about. You know, like turning your wheels, but you're going so fast that you're drifting while your wheels are turning. Like, that's crazy awesome.
Yeah, it really is. That's the equivalent of sending it. That's the equivalent of sending a huge jump, but in turn. Like, you're going so fast. You have so much trust in your ability to turn that you are completely shifting your body weight in the opposite direction and actually breaking traction on purpose. Yes. And you the understanding of the physics of your bike and your body weight and your tire and the terrain that's a level of commitment that I just don't think I ever had to commit that to a turn.
Clips.
Oh my gosh. I mean, how do you even practice that sort of thing? It's pretty cool. So
I tell you what, Danny, I don't wear pads, but if I was going to practice that, I would definitely be wearing pads.
Yeah. I could see some very awkward falls. Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's get to our Apple Podcast review of the week. So everyone listening, if you haven't yet, please go into your podcast player and rate, ride, laugh 5 stars, and make sure that you subscribe and go to auto download so that the algorithm sends us out to more people and we get credit for you listening. And then leave us a cool review, or any review is helpful. And we are reading some of the really fun reviews that everyone has left. And so we appreciate that very much. Thank you, listeners. This one is from, again, I don't know what these names, I don't know if they're assigned or if this is an actual person's name pick, but Uber Sigh.
Oh, Uber Sigh. Okay.
Is that like a really long sigh, or is that someone like an Uber driver who's like, another shift?
Yeah.
Or an Uber sigh.
That's not the kind of vibe we want.
Well, actually it is, because the title is These podcasts are so much fun. Dan and Sage's chemistry is so much fun to listen to. 2 guys that know mountain bike and each other so well. It's a combination for an incredible podcast. Definitely one of the best pods to listen to.
Yo, that's Uber
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's an Uber toot. Uber toot. Uber toot.
I love it, man. Thank you, Uber Sigh. That's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Let's talk about our ride at Mountain Creek Bike Park.
Danny, I got to tell you, man, that drive is so long. And it's like, is this worth it? And then the minute you hit that first line, you're like, yep, totally worth it. Absolutely worth it. I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but like, man, this is one of those special places where you go and, you know, it's got a fast lift line, so you're not waiting that long. And every trail.
A fast lift.
Yeah. Oh, I said fast lift line, but I meant fast lift. Yeah. Every trail there is fantastic. This is one of the places where I'll actually ride the green trail to warm up because the green trail is so much fun. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what an amazing place. So grateful to have a place like that. Shout out Mountain Creek. But yeah, it was such a great time, Danny. I mean, it had everything. It had highs, it had lows, it had crashes, it had sends, it had everything.
Yeah. It was really fun. We knew that our listener, Dylan, who has listened in on the YouTube comments and also has emailed us, When Sage broke his bike, he emailed Riding Life One at Gmail and offered to paint the bike when it was repaired if Sage needed it painted, because that's what he does. He paints for a living. And he had his transition bike there that he had painted himself and his helmet, and they were awesome. So so we let him know. He's a Mountain Creek guy. He loves it there. So we let him know, and what an awesome dude. And so we were able to ride the lift with him and get to know him a little bit better, and then do some laps. And so it was really cool. We did meet some great people.
Yeah.
We are all about the jump lines, especially at Mountain Creek. The jump line is just really, this is the place where there's like an intermediate jump trail that Sage has just been jonesing to get back to, because you've really been feeling like the expert line is just a little too hard. The beginner lines you got, but the intermediate trail there, which is called Tempest. And how'd you feel? You looked really good.
Well, man, I got to tell you, man, I have been jonesing. I have been visualizing and dreaming about this trail. I was surprised to see that it was a blue, because I always thought Tempest was a black level trail. But when we went, it was actually a blue. But the features that are on it, this is why I love Tempest, because, and you might be able to relate to this at a bike park near you, the features are optional. So there are several drops and kickers off to the sides that make this a black level trail. Maybe that's why I thought that Tempest was black. And you know what? That's what a good bike park will do. Actually, that's what any good trail will do. You'll have the regular trail, but then, builders would put in optional features. And this Tempest trail is a great example of that. So it starts with Outlaw, which kind of gets you warmed up for it. Has a new step down and all this other stuff. You get to Tempest, and right at the beginning, there's an optional drop. It's like within the first 10 feet. And that sets you up for everything else. You hit this drop, and it just sends you nice and sweet into the first step up. Then there's another kicker, and boom, you're off to the races. There's this massive table, Danny, that I've just been dreaming about hitting. I was so close to hitting it last year. I got it this year, man. It wasn't first go, but I got it. It was magical. It was magical.
Yes. I could hear you hooting and hollering behind me. I think I saw you in front of me. I think we did a run where you were in front of me, and you cleared it. You cleared it more than once. Like you were clearing it. You had it dialed.
Yeah.
It's a bike park jump. It's steep. It's lippy, and you had your form. And we're straight airing it, but we're trying to put a little style in. We're straight airing it, but we need a little more.
Yeah, dude. We were putting style in it, just not on that one.
Yes. The higher you go, the scarier it gets, for sure. But yeah, you were clearing it. It was awesome. And then we had talked last week before we went to Mountain Creek. Are we going to stop and look at the Anthem drops? They name all their drops. Yes. The Anthem drop is off of Tempest, and it doesn't really fit with the rest of the trail. You kind of go off from like a flowy jump trail, and then as soon as you hit the spur to hit this drop, which is definitely a Black Diamond level drop, if not even double black, it gets like really janky and loose. And then there's a really long wooden ladder that goes out to the drop. And you can't really see the ladder, where the entrance to the ladder is, until you're basically on it. So you have to, for me, I almost always brake getting into it, and then I have to pedal on the ladder. And the drop's not all that high, but it's really far out. Yeah. It's very easy to case. And you have to pedal on this kind of narrow ladder. On one of those runs, I was pedaling, and I got a little bit close to the side. I could feel it, but I'm not gonna focus on that, because I've done this drop a million times, and it's always been fine. But yeah, so we decided wisely, because we hadn't been there in 2 years, let's stop and look at that instead of just sending it. And I'm glad that we did.
I am too, because you do forget about, all the little intricacies. And you had just noted, how to get onto that. You can't see the wooden feature. So, when you stop to look at a feature, those are all the things that you should be taking into account, and some of them you won't know until you do a run up. So, when Dan and I, when we're about to do a new feature for the first time, we'll do what's called a run up. And that's basically a test run where you don't actually send it. You just do right up to the lip. If it's a slab, you're going right up to the edge. If it's a drop, you're going, almost to the end of the drop. If it's a jump, maybe you're stopping right at the top of the lip. That's called a run up. And so Dan and I, we did one or two run ups on this thing, get a feel for how it feels. we had already known what the speed was on this. So it was just really getting the right line into it. And I got to tell you, I'm really glad we did it because I had forgotten about a few things, little nuances about the trail.
Yeah.
And it was just really helpful. But we ended up setting that thing absolutely buttery smooth. It's one of those that look really cool, but it's also really daunting when you look at it like, oh, no. But it's smoother than you think it is.
Yeah. I got nervous when we went and looked at it and you sent it first. I got nervous looking at it again. So many times you see these things from the side and they just look so scary. And then when you ride them, they go so nicely. So, and that's sometimes just gaining the confidence. And the first time that we did that anthem drop, there were other people came by and they were like, hey, you want to see the speed? We'll show you the speed. And then they hiked back up and they said, do you want to tow in? So, I mean, we had more information when we needed it. So if you stick around long enough, especially at a bike park, there's a good chance that someone's going to come through, and people are very helpful. I mean, we would be happy to help someone as well.
Actually, Danny, you brought up a really good point because, I mean, it's one of the reasons why we do this mountain bike podcast is because mountain bikers are awesome. And if you are someone that's been nervous about going to a bike park, like this is exactly what we're talking about. When you're in the lift line, just ask somebody, hey, what's this trail like? Or if you're stopped somewhere, don't stop someone that's in the flow of the ride, but like if there's a group of people stop.
Excuse me, sir. Yeah.
Oh,
I need to know the speed on Anthem. Oh man, I'll get the next guy. Uber side.
But Uber side. There you go. But like, everybody's so friendly, and 9 out of 10 times they're going to be wanting to. First of all, they might even want to lead you in, which is really great. But everyone's going to try and help you out. It's a great community. So yeah.
Anyone that rides, you're listening right now, how it's fun to share the Stoke. I mean, that is exactly what we're doing with this podcast. Is we're so stoked on mountain biking. You're listening, so you love mountain biking. We've established this. You love mountain biking. We love mountain biking. Mountain bikers are awesome. We're starting a whole new pod. Here we go. So
I was about to say, forget the drop because I want to talk about right after that drop. You are throwing in this like new steezy move on this table.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing.
Well, okay, thank you. I don't know that amazing yet, but I'm starting to feel the bar turn that doesn't feel intuitive to me. But what feels more intuitive is just kind of pulling the bike up towards me, but also to the side. So I used to just move the handlebars. I called that my giddy up or my hitch. But now I'm actually like kind of moving the bike to the side a little bit. And I've seen a lot. I watch a lot of mountain bike YouTube. I see a lot of riders do that. And that move felt pretty comfortable to me on jumps that I felt comfortable on. So on the real big ones, I wasn't doing it yet. But on some of the smaller drops, I could do it. I could put a little move in there because we're pretty confident in drops, but we don't do any move on drops either. Ride and Life on the Gmail on the YouTube. Like, how important is the move on a drop? Do you throw style into the drop?
I did you dirty, Danny. I did you dirty because when we first get to the bike park, I'm usually the person that's leading because my memory is so good of the trail. So I'm usually and you had said to me, hey, I'm trying this new move. And in my head, I was like, oh, if this is anything like Danny's bar turn, barely going to see this thing. I got to tell you, I was a little bit jealous, actually. It was so good. You can literally see yourself. And by the way, when you're going to attempt a new move, we're not looking for a massive table. Think of if you're going to try something like a bar turn or this new steezy move that Dan's doing, pick a table that you're comfortable with, that you've hit a few times so you kind of have a feeling for how much time you're in the air. Well, I'm riding behind Danny. It's right after, and the reason this is why I brought it up, because it's right after the Anthem drop. There's these two big tables. And I had no idea that you were going to do this. I'm riding along and I'm focusing on drop. Next thing I know, Danny's bike is going off to the side. He's staying upright. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is that intentional? The next table is right after it. And you did it again. And I was like, that was intentional. It's unbelievable. Danny is unlocking a move. It was unbelievable.
It's happening. It's happening. Yeah. The move just started to come to me and it felt good. Yeah. So it's definitely something to keep on working on. And hopefully we'll have more jumps where we can do that. So that was really cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up. And I appreciate Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I'm looking forward to refining that a little bit more and seeing how that feels. Seeing it, does that add control? Does that actually unlock another level of jumping? Does it add confidence?
Can I blow a little bit more toot up your rear end?
Oh God. No.
Is that
what?
No.
Just compliment me without the toot.
The toots go the other way. We don't go up, we go out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. An inverted toot. That's horrible.
A vart.
Yeah, right. He has some sort of fart vacuum over here. I don't know what's going on.
Fart vacuum. I was trying to say I was going to blow smoke up your ass, and I was like, can I change smoke out for toot and blow? And no, it went all over the place. I apologize. But can I give you another compliment? It is a weird term. Can I give you another compliment?
Please.
You are a berm turning machine, Danny. There is another trail there. And again, a lot of bike parks. So when you get onto these flow trails, and we don't do many tech trails, but I can speak to some intelligence about the flow trails, especially at Mountain Creek. There are some that are more jump heavy or laden, and there are some that are more geared to turning. There's this one trail called Indy, and there might be 2 tabletops in there, but this thing has some really, really tight berms. And I got to tell you, Danny, I usually put some space on you when we get to Indy. I was holding on for dear life. You are a berm turning machine, brother. What happened?
Yeah, I definitely have unlocked that. I mean, we're going back to the e-bike again. I mean, we need to get a commission on these e-bikes that we're selling to everybody. But
I know.
I really felt like on the e-bike that it was so planted and it was so solid, and I started to really trust it. And we were sessioning the jump line that had a berm. I don't know. And at Trexler there was berms, so we were sessioning that. And I just started to like feel much more confident in the turns, and I just brought that with me to my analog bike, and staying centered and pushing through the tires. I felt really good. You are such a turning machine. There was definitely laps where you were so unbelievably fast. But for the first time, I had a few laps where I was keeping up with you. And afterwards, I was like, so what was your speed there? And you were like super fast. And I was like, okay, cool. I kept up.
Yeah.
We were fast. We did some fast laps at that place.
Yeah. Can I help you out here? I feel like in the past, Dan, you would ride into the turns without intention. You know, and we had kind of talked a little bit last week about, a straightaway pump track on its side. I literally saw you pumping into the berms. This wasn't like I'm going to let the bike do the work and kind of use the berm. You were actually working the berm. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference. When you're working a berm versus riding a berm, and you were working it. I could see you literally unweight and then push into that berm, and then unweight and then push into the next berm, because these are S berms, so you're coming in to the left and then you're swinging to the right. I literally saw you working the bike. I could see the dirt coming up from your tires. And that's when you know you're working it, because when you see that back tire start to slide out, you can watch that dirt kind of fly up, but you know that tire is going to catch that trust level.
Yes.
Yo, next level.
There's something about there. We talked about this with the Scandinavian Flick, right? That's like supreme level of trust, but there is Uber trust. That's right. There is a level of trust also in turning, where you're going for it. You're leaning into it. You're pushing into it. And that, in turns, your tires they're going to lose traction, but they're going to hook up again. Yeah. And so a lot of people, they lose traction and then they squeeze brake and they're like, okay, that's my maximum speed right there. I'm not going to go that fast.
That's what you used to do. Yep.
That's where I was for a long time. Yeah. So some good berm turning technique and some good tips there from Sage on how to use that, and more on the pump track on its side or the roller on its side. And I do have a pump track in my backyard right now, so that certainly didn't hurt. And that's something I've been wanting to get better at, is cornering. And so I ride, I go out on that pump track. Sometimes it's 5-7 minutes. That's what's great about having it in your backyard. Sticks and Stones. If you live in Pennsylvania and you want Sean to build you a backyard pump track, Sticks and Stones Trail Company. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And if you want to get good at cornering, pump track is awesome. Or if you just know where to go.
Do you feel G's?
Yeah. Yeah, don't you? Yeah, I feel it.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You got to get
Oh,
you got to get your head up and you got to get your eyes up to look out at the end of the berm. That's the other secret, is keeping your eyes up. And I definitely like what you can feel it. You can feel it on your, as you're looking
head.
up, you can feel. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like,
I'm wearing a pretty big helmet. As a guy who broke his jaw, if you're watching any video right now on the Ride Laugh at the downhill park, I'm wearing a full downhill helmet. I told my wife, I am not breaking my face again. This head is going to be protected no matter what. So yeah, it's a full downhill helmet. A lot of people wear kind of enduro helmets or helmets that breathe a little bit better. I mean, this thing's like, you could launch me into space in this thing. I think I could probably breathe. Yeah. It's but it's surprisingly not that heavy. I got a great deal on it. It's carbon, and it's a little bit warm in there, but I'll take it. It's peace of mind for me. After going through what I went through with 2 surgeries and my jaw wired shut, like just breaking my face is just not an option again. So, as far as turning, there's a revamped feature that's probably been there for a little bit, but we have not seen it in a while. And we had not been on it before. On the Alpine Trail, they changed the wooden wall turns.
Stop it.
And
yes,
I rode these kind of normal, and I was riding behind Sage, and you were riding it so high, you almost rode off the top at one point. But like you did that from the get-go. We only rode that trail a couple times. You were just so comfortable on these things. You're like riding up the Berlin Wall. You almost went into the East Berlin.
I didn't realize how high I was until I looked at the video and I was like, holy crap. Yeah, man. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea where that came from.
It was awesome. It was cool. I had you jumped off at pretty high points also, which is scary. Yeah.
I don't know who I was. I was somebody else.
You're a wall riding machine.
Mm-hmm.
So we did have some calamity that day. So we had tons of success on the Tempest Trail. And I will say there's a lot going on in my life right now. And on the drive up, I was a little bit distracted. Once I started riding, I felt good. But there was moments when my mind was wandering a little bit. And so we decided that we've graduated from Tempest. We're going to go to the Black Diamond Jump Trail at Mountain Creek, which is called Dominion.
Yeah.
And I've called it Old Dominion before, but it's called Dominion. It's been there for a while, so it's Old Dominion.
It is old. Yeah.
And we are doing the pre-ride, which should include really taking it easy and probably casing everything and getting a feel for things and getting the speed and starting to. So these jumps are Tempest, they're great. The jumps are great. These jumps are bigger, but they're much lippier. And so it's pre-ride. I clear the first jump. It feels great. I'm heading in. The first jump is really just kind of like a get your speed jump. I'm heading into the second jump and I'm thinking, I don't think I want to case these. I think I'm just going to send it. So I had a ton of confidence. I had a ton of courage. I did not have my technique dialed in and I wasn't ready for the lippiness of the jump. And I just sent this thing like to the moon. Luckily I had my new helmet on. So I overshot. We weren't recording because it was a pre-ride. So I overshot it and I landed to flat and I also over rotated because I wasn't centered enough. And so my back wheel got bucked. And as I'm like heading towards the ground, I'm thinking I have a chance to either ride this out or I can bail. And I was really close to riding it out. Ultimately I decided to bail and I went down really, really hard. It was a crash. So it was loud enough that the people in front of us stopped and turned around and came back. To see if I was okay. I was like, how did they know I crashed? And Sage was like, it sounded like a car crash. The ground shook. I think everyone knows. So I'm laying there on the trail and they pull me off. I walk off to the side and the bike's okay. The handlebars are turned a little bit, and this really nice guy. I don't know who he was, but this really nice younger fellow, was like, "What did you land on?" I said, "My elbow," and he had me like stand up and test my elbows and test my knees. He said, "Did you hit your head?" And just did like a quick like check of me and everything, and just really, really, really nice person, and I appreciated that. And I knew I was okay, but I scratched up my elbow pretty good. and my pads worked. I landed on my knees and my elbow. And I was grateful to have all that stuff. And I ripped an elbow pad, and my elbow I could tell it was bleeding. And so that we kind of like made our way down the trail in true pre-ride fashion. And I could just feel all the emotion of the crash, and just really kind of like going into a dark place. And now I have like a bloody elbow, and it's going to be such a pain in the butt to sleep. And like, I'm just so upset at myself. And I've been focusing my life on keeping a higher vibration. And so I just like awareness came to me right away. Like, dude, you're going down into a dark place. And what do I do to get up to a better place? It's reach for a better thought. I talk about that in my life all the time, and I talk about it on the podcast. It's reach for a better thought, right? Gratitude, journal, find something to appreciate. And so I'm like, well, what can I appreciate out of that? And I'm on my bike, and my bike's not broken, and I'm not really all that hurt. And it was a bad crash. And so suddenly I was just like, you know what? I'm okay. And it just brought me up. You know, I was still down the spiral. I was still like emotionally like not really thrilled. I was still disappointed. And physically I hurt. You know, the fall was not insignificant. But it was like, okay, you know what? I'm not hurt. And so just finding something to appreciate. And so then we go to do another run, and they say the lift's closed. There's lightning within 9 miles. And so we sit down on this picnic table. It's under an overhang. And sure enough, it actually starts to rain. And there's just all these people there. And I had sat down next to Julie and her husband, Scott. And she was an awesome shredder. And so it ended up giving us all this time to sit and talk to people and get to know people and tell them about the pod, or people that were already fans. And Dylan was there hanging out with us. And so it was actually really cool to be able to like just stop and just talk to all the mountain bikers that were around. They were really cool people.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What an interesting perspective. I didn't think about that, but you're right. You know, we did meet a lot of cool people, and that crash slowed us down a little bit, you know, in conjunction with the rainstorm. And that kind of allowed us to connect to more people. And maybe that crash prevented something else more serious from happening.
Yeah.
You know, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Right.
So, you know, like I sit in traffic right now, and, you know, I used to get really angry that I was stuck in traffic. And now I'm like, maybe this like prevented like a car accident for me later on. Yes. I don't know. You know,
if we have a belief system that everything happens for us and not to us, so we're not victims. That's right. Things are happening for us. And so after the crash, I was thinking about what I did wrong and whatnot. And it really comes down to pre-ride, re-ride, free ride. And we decided to look before we leap on Anthem Drop. And I just decided that I didn't want to do that on Dominion Trail. And, we talked about in the past doing things for the right reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are the right reasons in deciding, to not pre-ride, right? What was I thinking, but they were the wrong reasons. And so, just there are certain mountain bike things that make sense is look before you leap, pre-ride a jump line, and get a feel for it. So,
yeah, also focus too, Danny, because you had mentioned several times during that ride that you were falling in and out of focus. So living in the moment, which is something else that we talk about, being present in the moment makes a huge difference. And I find myself struggling with that too, because there's a lot going on in my life too. And I find myself wandering or wanting different things out of life, and instead just enjoy what's in front and appreciate what's in front, at that moment. I'm riding bikes with my best friend. Yeah, like what? Yeah, man.
Yeah. Like even right now, this moment, as you're listening to this, as Sage and I are talking, in this moment right now, everything is fine. Everything is perfect. Like we don't have to add all this angst and worry. So after the crash, I found myself thinking about the crash a lot. And I realized like, I'm just having so much anxiety about this. This is not serving me. Serving me. So I just decided I'm not thinking about that crash anymore. I'm just going to be in the, when I notice those thoughts, I'm just letting it go. Everything's happening for us, not to us. So go with the flow. I didn't get hurt. Let's see what happens. See how things are going to work out for us. Yeah.
this is the perfect transition into our gratitude, since we're just talking about gratitudes. Danny, what is your gratitude for this episode?
Well, it has to be my pads. I've used my mountain bike pads as a gratitude in the past because I wear these G-form pads and I have the trail ones. When I go to the bike park, I went and splurged and I got their heavy duty ones, which is called their rugged version. And so I was wearing those, and the G-form pads, they're flexible, but when you land, they tighten up.
Yeah.
And I ripped one of the elbow pads, which is a shame, but it did its job. And both of my knees actually have like broken skin on them just from landing so hard. But if I wasn't wearing pads, it would be a lot worse. I think they did a great job, and very, very grateful for the G-form rugged pads, and they're comfortable to wear, comfortable enough. So I'm very grateful for those pads. I'm very grateful for the helmet, which I didn't really need it, but it worked out. So that's another thing. I was prepared, and so I was wearing what I feel comfortable wearing at a bike park to be protected. And all in all, from a pretty bad crash, I walked away like relatively unscathed. So very, very grateful. So thank you, G-Form, for making some great products that are comfortable and not bad to look at too.
Yeah. I'm going to stick on theme as well. And it's something that we touched on earlier in this episode, and mountain bikers are awesome, and I'm really grateful that they were actually young. They were kids. They were really young kids. I'm grateful that they were there when you crashed. This kid, gentleman, young man, knew exactly what he was doing. He came over, he said, lift your arms up. He had like all these routines. So he had clearly taken like some kind of a first aid, class. And, you didn't need it. You weren't that hurt. You weren't serious, but it was nice. He went through like concussion protocols. Like, it was really cool. And I'm grateful that he was there. He was a trail angel. And how does this relate to what we had talked about earlier? Mountain bikers are cool. And he heard that, he came running over and he wanted to help. And that's the kind of community that we love, that we're talking about, and that we're promoting. So gratitude to him and everyone else out there that's out there helping people, either first aid wise or giving advice or leading someone into a new line. Thank you, mountain bikers. Thank you, mountain bike community.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That is awesome. Yes, mountain bikers are awesome. We got such a special sport. It's so much fun, and the people that do this sport are so cool. Like mountain bikers, like it's just a great community.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have so many examples of hanging out in the parking lot and just being stoked. And it could be in the parking lot, it could be the top of a jump line, it could be at the bottom of the lift when we're underneath the overhang waiting for the rain to stop, and everyone's just like geeking out on bikes and trails and progression, and it is great. It is great.
Yeah.
Sage, what's the mountain bike tip of the week?
Also going to keep it on theme.
All right.
You had mentioned that you had ripped your pads. Well, guess what? The number one important mountain bike skill isn't learning how to berm, isn't learning how to jump, isn't learning any of these things. It has nothing to do with bikes. The most important tool that you will need as a mountain biker is learn how to sew. I'm not kidding. I have saved because the gear is expensive, Danny. Gloves, right? Gloves. I'm spending $30, $40 on gloves, knee pads and elbow pads. They rip. Learn how to sew. Get yourself a small sewing kit. You can save yourself a little bit of money by learning how to sew up your gloves, get them out for another season. So yeah, get yourself a nice needle and thread and save your gear.
I think it's a great tip. However, if the Lone Ranger sees this bit and hears you say that the most important mountain bike thing to learn,
he's going to put
learning to sew. Yeah, Lone Ranger. I mean, Sage just threw you a softball. If you want to have a counter to Sage being upset about your e-bike take, wait till Ryan gets a hold of your sewing take here. The most important mountain bike skill. Maybe a little exaggerated, but certainly a good one. And yeah, you know what? I'm going to try to save those pads by sewing them instead of buying new ones. So, or actually ask my wife to sew them, but I love you, babe. Thank you. All right. Well, if you're still listening, you are definitely one of us. You love mountain bikes. You love talking bikes and riding bikes. Please rate and subscribe on your podcast player and on YouTube. And we appreciate you. We have gratitude. We love mountain bikers. Everybody have a great week. Ride and laugh.
I'll see everyone.